Connie Dabate began her final morning unaware that the digital trail around her was already recording the truth her killer hoped no one would ever find. Richard Dabate thought he had crafted the perfect lie, but the silent data inside his own home was preparing to expose every step he tried to hide. Connie Dabate lived her last hours following a familiar routine, never knowing that the person she trusted most had already set a deadly plan in motion. Richard Dabate believed the story of an intruder would save him, but technology inside the house he tried to manipulate would become his greatest enemy. Connie Dabate's tragedy didn't begin with a break-in, it began with a betrayal buried so deeply that only digital evidence could bring it to light. Connie Dabate lived in a quiet Connecticut town where most people left their doors unlocked and waved at passing cars. Her home sat at the end of a peaceful street marked by tall maples, trimmed hedges, and front porches decorated for the holidays. The house itself looked warm and inviting, with soft yellow lights glowing through the windows each evening. To anyone driving by, it seemed like the perfect suburban life: steady routines, predictable schedules, and a sense of comfort that rarely wavered. Neighbors saw Connie as a grounded, kind woman who balanced work, family, and friendships without ever appearing overwhelmed. She smiled easily, helped at community events, and always tried to keep her world moving smoothly. Despite that calm exterior, Connie carried private worries she never shared. Her marriage had slowly begun to drift, and although the changes were subtle, she felt them deeply. The shared jokes faded, the warmth in conversations cooled, and familiar closeness felt replaced by a quiet distance. Connie tried to make sense of it, reminding herself that every relationship had its difficult phases. She believed that patience would fix what felt broken. With hope guiding her, she poured herself into holiday plans, charity drives, and family gatherings. She wanted stability, not conflict, and she convinced herself the unease inside the home would eventually fade away. Winter arrived with heavy snow and bright decorations on every street. To Connie, the season represented a chance for reset, a time when families gathered, shared meals, and found comfort in each other's company. She believed this holiday would help repair the strain she felt growing around her. She wrapped gifts, planned dinners, and kept her thoughts steady. Nothing about her routine suggested she would soon become the center of a devastating investigation. Everything appeared unchanged, even peaceful, right up until the day after Christmas. 2 days after the holiday, the calm of the Dabate home shattered. A frantic call was made by her husband, claiming that an unknown intruder had broken into their house. His voice, shaken but urgent, described chaos and danger. The town's peace cracked in an instant. Emergency vehicles rushed toward the quiet street that had rarely seen anything more serious than a lost pet or a noise complaint. Neighbors stepped out onto their porches, confused and alarmed, watching flashing lights paint the snow in harsh colors. For a community unaccustomed to crime, it felt like a nightmare unfolding in real time. When authorities entered the home, they expected signs of a violent struggle caused by an outsider, but what they found instead brought a wave of confusion. The scene inside did not match the story being told. Objects were scattered yet not broken, as if placed rather than thrown. Certain rooms looked disturbed, while others remained untouched. Some details felt carefully arranged. Detectives exchanged concerned glances, sensing immediately that something deeper and more complex was hiding beneath the surface. It was the first quiet hint that the Dabate home held secrets no one had imagined. What they saw that morning marked the beginning of a case that would unravel the very life Connie had worked so hard to hold together. When investigators stepped into the Dabate residence, they expected the raw disorder that usually followed a violent break-in: shattered glass, overturned drawers, and scattered valuables. Instead, they found a strange blend of chaos and control, as if the home had been carefully arranged to look disturbed without suffering real damage. A heavy chair lay on its side, yet the lamp beside it stood perfectly upright. Decorative items that should have broken from even a minor fall remained untouched on shelves. The scene felt oddly balanced, almost rehearsed. Nothing about the layout carried the frantic energy of a real struggle. One detail caught their attention immediately: a window screen sliced from the outside. At first, it seemed like clear evidence of forced entry, but the glass behind it remained completely intact. No cracks, no smudges, not even a disturbance in the dust along the sill. The investigators exchanged quiet glances, realizing that the cutscreen felt more like a prop than a sign of invasion. As they moved deeper into the house, their suspicions grew. Connie was found upstairs, and the silence in the home made every step echo. The placement of furniture, the stillness of the air, and the lack of genuine disorder all suggested a staged scene rather than a desperate attempt to escape an intruder. Detectives had been to dozens of burglary scenes before, and certain patterns always repeated: missing electronics, open drawers, scattered jewelry boxes. Here, nothing valuable had been taken. The televisions remained on their stands, the laptops rested on desks, and costly jewelry sat untouched in the bedroom. Even the cash stored in a kitchen drawer was still neatly stacked. It was as though the intruder had entered the home without any interest in valuables, which made little sense to experienced investigators. A real burglar acted with speed and purpose. This scene had neither. As officers photographed the rooms and documented each detail, they grew increasingly aware that the house was telling a story that didn't match the explanation they had been given. Something was wrong, and the clues felt intentionally placed. It was not the wild mess of panic, but a calculated arrangement meant to mimic disorder. The deeper they looked, the more the inconsistencies began to collect like puzzle pieces scattered across the floor. Then they discovered something that shifted the entire direction of the investigation: the digital logs from the home's smart devices. The Dabate household was equipped with motion sensors, automated locks, and connected appliances, all silently tracking the family's movements. Modern homes rarely kept secrets, and this one had recorded far more than anyone expected. Each time a door opened, each moment a hallway light turned on. Each step detected by the system had been stored with precise timestamps. Investigators downloaded the data and immediately noticed discrepancies. Movements recorded during times the husband claimed no one was active. Door sensors silent during moments he described as frantic escapes. Rooms lighting up at times that contradicted the story being told. The digital timeline showed patterns entirely different from what witnesses claimed had happened. For the first time that morning, detectives realized that technology might reveal a truth hidden behind the carefully staged scene. The home, wired with devices meant for convenience and security, had captured a silent timeline. And that timeline was beginning to point in a direction far more disturbing than an unknown intruder. Investigators turned their attention to the digital evidence, knowing that technology often revealed truths people tried to hide. They began with the basics: phone logs, text messages, and email records. From there, they expanded into fitness data, GPS locations, and the home's automated systems. What appeared to be random pieces of information soon formed patterns that challenged the official account. The first major clue came from Connie's fitness tracker. According to her husband, she had been attacked at a specific time, yet the device showed steps being taken well after that moment. Each step recorded by the tracker hinted that she was still moving, contradicting the story being presented. It was a small detail, but small details often broke big lies. Next, investigators examined the smart home security system. The alarm, which should have signaled a forced entry, told a different story. Instead of showing an intrusion from outside, the system logs revealed it had been manually disabled from within the home. No alerts, no errors, and no evidence of tampering. If someone had entered violently, the system would have recorded it. But the data suggested that whoever staged the scene had full access and time to manipulate the settings. It became increasingly difficult for detectives to ignore the gap between the husband's claims and the digital timeline. Motion sensors filled in even more inconsistencies. Each room in the house had a device that detected movement and temperature changes. When investigators compared the husband's description of the events with the sensor logs, the two accounts drifted further apart. Places he claimed to have run through showed no recorded movement. Meanwhile, areas he insisted he never entered lit up with activity. It was as though two separate stories were unfolding, one spoken aloud and one silently recorded by the house itself. Phone data added another layer. On the husband's device, investigators located messages that suggested a life Connie wasn't aware of, conversations, arrangements, and plans that painted a different picture of his priorities and intentions. The tone, timing, and secrecy of these exchanges hinted at motivations that reached far beyond panic or fear. They implied preparation, dissatisfaction, and a desire for change that had little to do with an intruder. This hidden digital trail showed someone who had been distancing himself long before the alleged break-in. Investigators also compared travel history from GPS records. Short trips made at unusual hours, unexplained detours, and locations that didn't fit the husband's normal routine stood out immediately. Each unexplained movement raised new questions about what he had been doing in the weeks leading up to the day of the crime. The more they examined the digital footprints, the more the pieces began to form an unsettling picture. Even financial data contributed to the growing suspicions. A series of recent transactions looked unusual small purchases that could easily be dismissed but seemed odd when combined with the rest of the evidence. The timing of these purchases connected uncomfortably close to the events in the house, aligning with the idea of premeditation rather than chaos. By the time investigators assembled everything, the narrative they were originally given barely resembled the one emerging from the technology. Each contradiction, each unexplained action, and each altered detail pushed the focus away from the idea of an intruder and toward a far more personal explanation. The digital trail didn't just expose inconsistencies, it outlined a potential motive built on secrets, tension, and choices no one in the quiet town imagined were happening behind closed doors. Detectives continued to sift through digital files, financial records, and personal correspondence until a hidden version of the Dabate household began to emerge, one that sharply contrasted with the calm image the couple had projected to friends and neighbors. What they uncovered suggested that Connie had been living beside a man who maintained a second life built on secrecy, pressure, and mounting resentment. The pieces did not come together all at once. Instead, they surfaced slowly, each discovery shedding new light on a story that had been carefully concealed. Financial documents were among the first clues that something deeper was happening behind closed doors. Investigators found a pattern of irregular withdrawals from accounts the couple shared. Some transactions were small and easy to overlook, but others were significant enough to suggest growing financial strain. Bills that had once been paid promptly now showed delays. Loans had been taken out without clear explanation. The more detectives examined the numbers, the more they realized the Dabate's finances were far from stable. Stress of this kind often influenced behavior, and in this case it appeared to be fueling deeper issues. Alongside the financial strain, detectives discovered evidence of secret relationships. Records from phone carriers and social media platforms showed long threads of late-night messages, private conversations, and plans made quietly in the background of the marriage. The tone of these exchanges revealed emotional involvement far beyond casual friendship. The husband had built connections that he kept hidden from Connie, connections that seemed to grow more intense as time went on. Investigators noted that the closer the crime date approached, the more frequent and urgent these private communications became. Insurance documents added another layer to the unfolding truth. Months before the incident, new life insurance policies had been taken out, including one with a particularly high payout amount tied directly to Connie. The timing raised suspicion immediately. Detectives compared the dates of these policies with the couple's financial records and saw a clear pattern. Increased debt, hidden communication, and insurance arrangements formed a triangle of risk that made the official story of an unexpected intruder increasingly hard to believe. What unsettled investigators most, however, was a recent purchase that connected directly to the day of the crime. It was an item one would not typically buy without careful thought, and its presence suggested preparation rather than panic. Receipts showed it had been bought weeks before the incident, yet the husband had never mentioned it during questioning. When detectives found the item stored in a location inconsistent with his account, the discovery strengthened their suspicion that the crime had been planned rather than spontaneous. As investigators laid out the timeline and compared it with the collected evidence, the contrast between the husband's version of events and the truth hidden in the data became impossible to ignore. The supposed intruder had left no trace, no motive, and no consistent evidence. Instead, the digital footprint of someone inside the home, someone with access. Familiarity and motive grew more prominent with every detail the detectives uncovered. What began as a case built around fear and claims of an unexpected attack slowly transformed into a portrait of deep betrayal. The hidden communication, the financial distress, the insurance documents, and the carefully timed purchases all pointed toward a single uncomfortable truth. The danger to Connie had not come from outside her home, but from within it. And the person she trusted most had been building a plan long before the tragic day arrived. Months after the chaotic morning that shattered the Dabate household, investigators sat down with a mountain of digital information. Every log, timestamp, and recorded action from the family's devices was arranged in order until the entire morning unfolded with precise clarity. What had once seemed confusing and contradictory now became a clear, minute-by-minute reconstruction. Connie's final hours revealed a woman following her usual routine, moving from room to room, preparing for the day ahead. Her fitness tracker showed her walking through the kitchen and up the stairs. At times her husband claimed she was no longer conscious. The data illustrated a calm, ordinary morning, one sharply at odds with the story he had insisted was true. The husband's movements, captured by the same network of smart home devices, painted a very different picture. Motion sensors detected him walking through rooms he claimed never to have entered. Door logs showed adjustments he denied making. His phone connected and disconnected from home Wi-Fi at moments that contradicted the narrative he presented to investigators. Even small details, such as lights switching on and off, served as silent witnesses to his activities. The timeline revealed calculated pauses, unexplained gaps, and movements that aligned perfectly with the staging of the so-called break-in. It became increasingly clear that nothing about the morning was spontaneous. The most significant moment in the digital reconstruction came when investigators matched the husband's location data with the exact time the alarm system was shut off. The shutdown had been manual, not forced. It occurred during a window when only he was detected moving inside the house. Connie's devices showed inactivity during that time, suggesting she had no involvement in disabling the system meant to protect them. The contradiction made the intruder story collapse starting from its very foundation. Every digital imprint pulled the case further away from the idea of an outside attacker and closer to the disturbing reality of an internal betrayal. Once the timeline was complete, the investigators presented it to the court. The judge reviewed each layer of evidence: financial records, secret communications, insurance policies, device logs, motion patterns, and trackers that recorded details no human eye could see. The picture that emerged left little room for doubt. The scenario described by the husband was not supported by a single piece of objective information. Instead, the evidence pointed overwhelmingly to a carefully staged event designed to disguise motive and shift blame. What had been described as a sudden, chaotic attack now appeared as a deliberate plan carried out quietly over weeks and masked with a fabricated story. News of the final findings spread quickly across the community. Neighbors who once admired the family's stability struggled to accept the truth hidden behind their familiar smiles. The shock came not only from the crime itself, but from the realization that modern technology had exposed lies once thought untraceable. The devices meant to make life easier, fitness trackers, smart locks, automated lights, had instead recorded the final hours of a woman who never realized she was in danger. They documented the actions of the person who should have protected her. In the end, the case of Connie Dabate became a powerful reminder of how deception can unravel when confronted by undeniable digital evidence. The truth surfaced not through confessions or eyewitness accounts, but through silent logs that remembered what the people involved hoped would be forgotten. Technology had no bias, no emotion, and no reason to distort events. It simply told the truth even when a human tried desperately to hide it.